It's time for the 8-Minute Devotion. The 8-Minute Devotion is a daily message that fills you with hope and encouragement from the Word of God. Here's your host, Pastor Cameron Walcott.
Hello, friends, and welcome back to the 8-Minute Devotion, our Wednesday episode. And do you know this is actually May 28th, which also means it is my 20th wedding anniversary. So I want to wish a very happy wedding anniversary to my wife, the lovely and talented Delia. You remember a few months ago we did the series, 20 episodes for our 20th anniversary on how God brought us together and, just talking about different tips we've learned along the way about the way that God has blessed our marriage, and we wanted to encourage you as well. So we did those 20 episodes, and now today is our actual 20th wedding anniversary. So again, happy anniversary to my wife, the lovely and talented Delia. We are in our series called Jesus in Judges, looking into the book of Judges to see different ways that it points towards the ministry of Jesus, the lives of the different judges. We're about to start looking at our third judge in this series, a man named Jepthah. And Jepthah might be the least known of the judges that we're going to be looking at in this series. But before we get into this, I want to ask you, have you ever felt like a misfit or been part of a group that had a bunch of misfits? Maybe you know of a group that had a bunch of seemingly misfit people who joined together and did something great. I think of the 2004 Detroit Pistons. They were the last championship team for one of my teams here, professional teams in Detroit, since I don't follow hockey. But the 2004 Pistons, one of my favorite teams, they took players when they won the NBA championship who had all been rejected by other teams. Their point guard, Chauncey Billups, turned the ball over too much. He didn't have the right body type for a point guard. He was a high draft pick, but his first team that drafted him, the Celtics, rejected him. Rip Hamilton was a good shooting guard, but he wasn't Michael Jordan. Rejected by the Wizards. Tayshaun Prince, their small forward, didn't excel at any one skill, so he dropped to the very end of the first round. Pistons took him. Ben Wallace, the center, he couldn't play offense. He had no offensive game at all. He was rejected by his previous team. And then Rasheed Wallace, the guy who joined the team last, well, he was rejected for many reasons, many of them to do with his temper and other things. He was a misfit. But these 5 misfit players that everybody had given up on, that all of their original teams had given up on, these 5, they're not the right guys. These 5 misfits came together, and they became the best team in the league. And in the 2004 NBA Finals, they beat the superstar Lakers. When Kobe and Shaq were at the peak of their powers, this group of misfits beat them, and it was an amazing victory. If you're a Piston fan, really, most of the NBA, I think, ended up rooting for the Pistons against the superstar team. But I'll never forget how the misfits came together and became a great team. Well, in the story of Jepthah, which we're going to look at today, Jepthah was not a man who was supposed to be the leader of Israel. Jepthah was a rough, rejected man. He grew up with a feeling of rejection. He grew up with a chip on his shoulder. Even when God starts to use him, we see imperfections in Jepthah. We see how Jepthah had sort of this complex that he wasn't good enough, wasn't the chosen one. Yet God saw something in Jepthah that led him to use him to do great things for the kingdom. The story basically is this. I'm just going to paraphrase a lot of these verses. Judges 11. Jepthah was a mighty warrior, but his mother was a prostitute. So his half-brothers, his father was a man named Gilead. All his brothers drove Jepthah out. They said, hey, you're not one of us. Your mother wasn't our mother. You get out of the house. So his brothers drove him away, even though Jepthah became a mighty man. After some time, verse 4, the Ammonites made war against Israel, and they were a mighty enemy. And now Jepthah's own brothers and his own people who had driven him out, they come back to him. They see how strong he is. They say, hey, come back, be our leader, fight against the Ammonites. And of course, Jepthah says to them, are you guys crazy? You kicked me out. You said I wasn't one of you. And now you're coming back to me? Now you're asking me to help you out after what you did to me? And the only people that had followed Jepthah were the misfits. That's why I started with the misfit story. It says the only ones who went with him were the worthless fellows, those who had no other prospects. They were the only ones who followed Jepthah. Now all the respectable people come. Hey, can you come? Can you fight? And Jepthah basically says, if you want me to fight for you, you have to promise I get to be the leader. I will be your leader after this is all over. The people promise him that. They say, okay, come and fight for us. And Jepthah then faces the Ammonites. He gets into an argument with their king. They get into a history debate. Jepthah makes a vow and says, God, if you give me a victory in this battle, whatever crosses the threshold of my door first, when I get home, I'm going to sacrifice to the Lord. And that leads us to verse 32 and 33. So Jepthah crossed over to the Ammonites to fight against them, and the Lord gave them into his hand. And he struck them from Aroer to the neighborhood of Minnith, 20 cities, and as far as Abel-keramim, with a great blow. So the Ammonites were subdued before the people of Israel. Jepthah wins this great battle for Israel. He strikes down the Ammonites and wins peace for his people. The enemy is annihilated. And Jepthah, the one that was a misfit, the one who gathered a group of misfits around him, the one who was rejected, is the one who leads Israel to victory. It's a great victory. It's a great story. It does take a sad turn. Jepthah gets home, and the one who greets him when he gets home is his daughter, his only child. Jepthah had promised the Lord, foolishly, a foolish vow. Jepthah had said, Lord, if you give me the victory, whatever crosses my door first, I will offer to you. And it's his daughter, his only child. And, it says at the end of the story, Jepthah did to his daughter that which he had promised. She had said, Lord, Father, you have to do your promise, but first let me go away with my friends for 2 months to bewail my virginity. And that's what happened. And Jepthah sacrifices his daughter. Now, there's a little bit of uncertainty. Did he actually offer her as a burnt offering, or did he offer her as a temple servant, to the Lord, that she would, not get married? And that's why she bewailed her virginity. We're going to talk about this next week, actually, when we get to the point about Jepthah and the sacrifice. But it's still a sad story at the end that Jepthah made a foolish vow. Instead of saying, Lord, just praying for God's blessing. That's what Jepthah did. But for today, what I want us to focus on, Jepthah had been a misfit. God used him to lead his people to victory. And that's the theme of Jepthah, is that the Lord uses Jepthah to do great and mighty and awesome things with his band of misfits. God can do that for us as well. We're going to see Jesus in the story of Jepthah, 3 specific ways. And even what happened with his daughter, we're going to see if there's any light in that. And of course, we're going to see how Jepthah never should have done what he did. He shouldn't have made the vow. And then even after the vow, he never should have sacrificed her. We're going to look at all of that. There's so many lessons we can learn from Jepthah. We're going to see them starting tomorrow on the 8-Minute Devotion.
Thank you for listening to the 8-Minute Devotion. Please subscribe, rate, and review the podcast wherever you listen to or watch it. And email us at the8minutedevotion@gmail.com with any questions or comments. May God bless you